This is big. Behind me is the all-new Ford Ranger. This thing is set to topple its competition, or so it says. This thing is all new. It's one of Australia's best sellers, and they have changed a lot with this thing. But this review is not for the faint of heart. I'm going to tell you literally everything you need to know about the all-new Ford Ranger, especially this one here in Wildtrak V6, guys. So I've driven the entire range over the last couple of days, so I'm quite familiar with them. And yeah, you guys aren't going to want to miss this one. So let's just get straight into it. Now, as always, we're going to start with the front of the Ranger Wildtrak. Now, this isn't the top of the range. That is, of course, the Ranger Raptor. And let me know in the comments below if you want me to review that. That's coming pretty damn soon. But at the moment, this is the best you can get. And it is a really, really good package. Starts at about 75 grand, which, yes, that is quite a bit of money. But as you'll see, you get so much kit. It absolutely destroys its competition, at least in standard features. But what do you get with the Wildtrak? You get these C-clamp designed lights here. Very American, very, very American. They're trying to kind of homologate the design there, so makes sense. As part of the premium package, you get these matrix LEDs which help to blank out parts of their beams for oncoming traffic. That's a really nice feature and is really good, especially if you're out in the country. You can keep your high beams on. You've got a really large grille here. That's not surprising in 2022 to see, but I like it. It's very masculine and macho. And then down the bottom, you get a nice little bumper there, and underneath you get a bit of scuff plating. So all works very well. And as you'll see, we'll go off-roading later. This thing is really, really off-road capable. Let's talk about the side. Now, coming to the side of the Ranger, you can see these 18-inch alloy wheels here. I think they look pretty damn cool. And also the paint on the body, that's the exact same hero color as the previous Ranger, but I kind of like it. It's very cool. If you get a Wildtrak, definitely get it with one of these. You've also got some all-terrain tires, which I was pretty skeptical of, but again, as I said, you'll see off-road, these are actually pretty good straight from the factory. V6 badge here. Now, if you get the V6, obviously you get the V6. If you get the BiTurbo 4-cylinder, it says BiTurbo, and if you get the lowly single turbo 4-cylinder, it just says turbo. But that's a pretty cool moniker to be able to know if you got the V6 or something a bit less. Also, here is functional, so it does vent air out of the engine bay, so it's not just there for good looks. Here you've got a 360 camera, got one of the best 360 cameras I've seen in a ute. I'm actually very impressed by it. Got some step plates here. It's got markings on it that let you know that, yes, you can step on it. Keyless entry and go, of course. Up here you get some roof rails, privacy glass, tinted from the factory, which is always nice. But this is my favorite part. It's the all-new tub. And it's got a lot of features with it, so let's talk about it. So one of the things that kind of gets you at these events is that the PR team are always going to tell you, oh, this is the greatest, this is the best, this is really good. I am super impressed by the tub. Don't really get impressed by these kind of things, but as you'll see, it's pretty impressive. So first of all, you've got this ultra light tailgate. It's unbelievably light. It's really good if you've got, you know, someone a bit less strong in your family, like your kids. They want to open it up. They're not going to get injured in any way. You've also got this here. Come around here. This is really cool. If we press a button here, the tonneau cover now automatically goes back. That is super duper impressive. I love that. We have some hooks here, which you can move around. That's pretty damn standard. But look, heaps of space within there. And now, people are going to say, oh, you can fit a Euro pallet in there. I don't give a about that. Most people don't give a about that, but the thing that is really good about that is it means that they've actually widened the arches there. So theoretically, you can just get more in there. And that's why I really like it. By the way, it's got about a ton of payload here in the V6, guys, so that's pretty good. You've also got a little charging outlet in the back too. Some markets do get like a full power point setup. We don't get that here. But yeah, I'm super duper impressed by this whole setup here. Speaking about the design on the back, got some new tail lights here, which are part of that, as part of the premium pack, which is, again, $1,500 option, but I think that it absolutely is worth it, because not only do you get the lights, by the way, you've also got a Bang & Olufsen sound system on the inside, which does sound really, really good, and auxiliary switches. We'll come back to that. Some cars will say four-wheel drive. That means it's permanent four-wheel drive. That's how you know it's the V6 if you're just sitting behind it. Some will have 4x4. That is the part-time 4x4 system. Again, we will talk about that. It's a big review. Ooh, and one thing I forgot to mention about the tub is that you do now get your own little stepping plate here. So look how easy it is to get in. All right, so now let's move on to the interior, because that is seriously the highlight of the Ranger, apart from the engine. But it's a really, really nice place to be. Not without its faults, but it's still a very, very nice place to be. So let me close the door, because it's absolutely freezing, and I'm sorry, cameraman, it must be absolutely freezing out there for you. Let me talk about the things that I love. First of all, soft touch materials pretty much everywhere that you touch. Again, they actually cared about that. Like even in the Toyota HiLux, by the way, I've spent so long driving the Navara, the HiLux recently, just to kind of get that benchmark, but Yeah, it's a really nice leather steering wheel, feels really good in the hands. You got buttons to control absolutely everything. You got storage everywhere. Look at all this. Storage up here, you've got a couple of cup holders, you've got a wireless charger there, storage there, more storage there. Center armrest is a pretty decent size too. So that's all really, really good. Annoyingly, if you don't get the Wildtrak, anything less, you don't actually get this upper glove box here, which is not that great. Also, these cup holders here that kind of push out from the side, I love those, really, really cool. But again, you don't get them unless you get the Wildtrak. I'm not entirely sure if that's a similar story across other brands, but I don't know, I wish I kind of saw that there, but that's a minor complaint, and having driven all of them, you don't really care about that. Now, the kind of elephant in the room, not only by metaphor, but by size, is this tablet here. It's a 12-inch display. It's very responsive. It is literally like using a tablet. It's huge. It is so big, and it's got that kind of wow factor to it. The only thing I don't really like about it is that it's kind of hard to use when you're driving on the road. You get used to it, mind you, but there isn't like, you know, haptic feedback or, you know, a dedicated home button, for example. So that can be a bit of a pain in the ass, but compared to everything else in the competition, it blows it out of the water. So I really can't complain too much. You've of course got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, both of which are wireless. So that is absolutely massive. And you've still got your aircon controls down there as physical buttons, which is super important. Up ahead of you, you get a digital instrument cluster, and you can go through a bunch of different information and menus. It's not the most customizable thing in the world, but for the segment, it is. It is pretty awesome. You do not see this. And I'm really happy that Ford are kind of taking a chance on technology. And before everyone comes in here being like, I prefer it when things don't break. Shut up. You don't want to be stuck in the dark ages. It doesn't get much better. Here's another thing I don't like though. This shifter here. So it's called an E-shifter. They didn't go to the rotary dial because people did not like that as part of their group chats that they had, but it's still okay. The thing I don't like about it is that you've got your manual mode and buttons on the side. So when I'm changing it into gear, I'm constantly mashing the buttons on the side. So not a big deal. It hasn't been an issue at all. It's just a minor gripe that I don't love. You do get these Wildtrak seats here. They are very nice leather. Again, way better than the HiLux I reviewed. If you want to watch that review, click over there to watch it. Although if you're a Toyota fanboy, don't watch it. You will get triggered. You got a Wildtrak badge there, so that's all very nice. And these seats are heated too. Not cooled. You can't get cooled across any of the range, which is a bit of a shame. But because it's winter, I don't know. I don't feel that pain right now, but you might in summer. It's a really nice, neat, tidy design. We'll talk more about the four-wheel drive areas here when we go off-road, but it's all really, really impressive. Now, coming into the back seats, and again, this is class leading. Usually when you get into the back seats of any of its competitors, except for maybe the Isuzu D-Max, you just miss out on something. The Amarok doesn't have good safety in the back seats. The Toyota HiLux, it doesn't have any connectivity in the back seats. This has absolutely everything. So you've got a couple of air vents back here. You've got a USB-C port and a USB-A port. That's good for future-proofing. Look, your little mat pocket there. I'm 5'11". This is my driving position. I've got heaps of legroom, heaps of headroom, and great tow room too. So if you've got mates that you're gonna be sticking in the back, they're gonna love it back here too. It's also super duper comfy with these leather Wildtrak seats. You've also got a bit of underfloor storage behind there, and you can move this back, or forward, I should say. And there isn't a huge amount of storage back there, but you might be able to fit one or two things. And then here, in this very weirdly difficult to open armrest, pre-production car, got some leather here, and you've also got some cup holders there too. Something I didn't mention, by the way, is the door handles. They are this new system where it's not like a normal door handle. You kind of reach in and pull a lever. They say it's for ergonomics. Door handles have been around for however many years. Haven't really had an issue. Not sure I love them, but they work fine. So I guess I can't complain. I guess if we're going to summarize the interior, it's going to blow the competition out of the water. Absolutely. Even the Isuzu D-Max, which is probably second best, is like 50% worse on the interior than this. This is super duper impressive. I really, really like it, and I know that a lot of the buyers are going to love it too. And it's good because it means that all the other competitors like Toyota need to step up their game. It's just how it is. Let's talk about the specs. So across the range, there are 3 engines. You've got the base single model turbo 4-cylinder that comes in kind of the very base models. That's really good if you want fuel economy, but you don't really care about power because it doesn't have very much. You've also got the carryover BiTurbo 4-cylinder, though they have revised a lot, and it is a lot better than it was before. Has about 150 kilowatt of power, about 500 Newton meters of torque. It's a pretty good operator. It does come with a part-time four-wheel drive system if you want to option that as well. But the one you really want is you want to spend $3,000 more, which in the grand scheme of things is not very much. You get yourself the V6, which has a permanent four-wheel drive system. It is by far the best engine, as we'll get into in a second, and that's what I've got here. It is all new, and it works so well inside of the Ranger. About 184 kilowatt of power, 600 Newton meters of torque. Very, very impressive numbers, and it's really good to see us going up in cylinders than down. It's also really good for towing, by the way. So 3.5 tons of towing pretty much across the range, though the only one I would want to do it in is with this V6. And how about I just show you why? Okay, so now we're going to launch the 4-cylinder. So to do that, we're just going to brake boost launch it. It is rear-wheel drive. Let's see how it goes. At 10 speed, we're up. That's 4 gear changes. We just got to gear 6, 9.2 seconds. That's not too bad. Okay, so now we're gonna launch the V6. Let's see how this one goes. Foot down, build some boost. Ooh. Again, those changing of gears. 0 to 100 in 8.8 seconds. Again, it's not the fastest engine out there, but it just feels like it will pull forever. Okay, so here we are driving the 4-cylinder with the BiTurbo on it. Let's see how it handles. You can definitely tell it's a bit lighter at the front end. Not much, it's about 100 and something kilos lighter, but you notice it. When you're driving around, the 4-cylinder is fine. It's already louder than the 6-cylinder because it just has to work that little bit harder. You put your foot down, and it does a decent job. You know, it's okay. It's nothing groundbreaking. Also, it's worth noting that even though technically this is the same 4-cylinder BiTurbo that you got on the previous Ranger, it's actually just way better here. They have changed a lot of the internals. They've changed a lot of the way that this thing works. And as a result, it just feels a lot better. It's a very torquey little engine. And when you compare it to other cars like the HiLux, it feels pretty much as powerful as that, so that's a very good thing. Okay, so why would you get the V6 over the 4-cylinder? Well, there's a few reasons. One, when you put your foot down in this, it's loud, and it has to work harder because it has less power, less torque. This thing still weighs 2.2 tons. That's still very, very heavy. And so, yeah, you just notice the engine a lot more in the 4-cylinder. Yes, it is more fuel efficient, but not much. I'm getting about 9.5 liters per 100 Ks in the BiTurbo, and in the V6, I'm getting 10 liters. The difference there is so marginal, it just does not matter. Obviously, there is the single turbo 4-cylinder, by the way, but I mean, that's just a work truck and nothing more. It's a very underwhelming engine. And yeah, it just doesn't seem to gel as well with the 10-speed auto. It kind of has to work a bit harder, find the gears a bit better to be in that sweet spot, and it's just a bit raucous. Okay, so here we are driving the V6, and I wanted to start this in a suburban area because this is honestly where I think the V6 shines. Because when you're driving it around, it just feels so damn smooth, way better than the 4-cylinder. It is like night and day difference. One of the things that a lot of utes really struggle with as well when you're driving in these suburban areas is because of the leaf spring suspension. It's great for holding weight, but if you don't have any weight back there, then it can feel really quite jittery, bouncy. This has none of that. It's not quite as good though when you're at higher speeds, as I'll show you in a moment, but when you're driving around town, it feels so settled. And this is one of the things that I was really impressed with talking to the engineers. Now, when you're on these drives, you've really got to disconnect yourself from, you know, the PR and the hype and blah, blah, blah. But you speak to the engineers here, Aussie people, they feel really proud of what they've done. And to be honest, like, they've done a great job. Interestingly, even though with the V6 you do get the permanent four-wheel drive system, it starts in two-wheel drive by default. Perhaps that's like a longevity thing for the front diff. I don't know. But all you have to do is press 4A and the car will put itself into that permanent four-wheel drive system, kind of acting like an all-wheel drive system. So if it's wet outside, things like that, you can use this system, of course, on paved roads, whereas in the part-time four-wheel drive, you definitely shouldn't. And yeah, what amazes me so much when you're just going at these suburban speeds, it is so smooth. You almost don't hear the engine. And actually, that's another thing about what they've done with the Ranger. They've made it just quiet. They've really thought about the acoustics within here, and they've done a really good job. So now we're on a bit of a back road here. this is one of the things I don't love, and that is that it can just feel a little bit unsettled at higher speeds. It's not something that I noticed in competitors, but it's something that I really noticed here. So that's, yeah, not the best. But you put your foot down, give it a bit of sauce, and that V6 is just so good, especially being paired with the 10-speed. To be honest, I did not like the 10-speed in the previous Ranger or Everest, but here it does a really decent job. And that new torque converter that they've put into it, that has changed it so much, and it just feels so much more refined and just so much better. And also a 10-speed is really, really good for towing. By the way, they've integrated a towing brake controller here, and you can do a bunch of different things with that. So if you are towing, this has become the king. They've really cared about that. It's just all these little things that make this so good, except for that ride at high speed. I'm not a huge fan of that, although if there was weight in the back, it would be a different story. Yeah, the engine here really isn't that throw you back in your seat. You put your foot down, it just feels really powerful, you know, that it will keep pulling for days. But yeah, it's not like a super quick engine. So it doesn't feel quite as quick, for example, as the outgoing Amarok. And obviously the new Amarok is gonna have this engine, but it still has plenty of punch, let me tell you, plenty of punch. The handling itself is pretty good, nothing too much to write home about. It's not too light, not too heavy, kind of got that Goldilocks effect to it. That's such a cliche thing to say, but it's good. And here on these back roads, it's actually quite a bit of fun to drive, which is surprising for a dual cab ute. I'm not gonna lie, if I was Toyota or Isuzu right now, I would be bricks, because here you get a car that kind of does it all. Okay, so for the last few days, I've jumped in and out of a bunch of different cars, but now we're in the Wild Track, but with the BiTurbo 4-cylinder. So we're gonna do some off-roading now. It's relatively light, but I've been a light off-roading. I've been pretty heavy off-roading. This is just the best opportunity I have to film. So without further ado, let's join this convoy and go off-roading. So because we're in the BiTurbo, it means we don't get the permanent four-wheel drive system, but we do of course have the part-time four-wheel drive system when you're out in the country like this, especially not doing too heavy stuff. The 4-cylinder is perfect regardless, although the V6 just takes it to another level. You just get more torque. But it's really good because in the Sport and Wild Track, you do get your different off-roading modes, and of course the Raptor is going to come with even more modes. But if we scroll down here, we put the car into mud and ruts. What that does is it automatically puts the car into 4 high. We can of course go into 4 low as well if we want to, and it automatically puts on the rear diff lock. So yes, you can get a rear diff lock. Only the Raptor is going to be coming with a front diff lock as well. You can't option it either, which is on the one hand a bit of a shame, on the other hand you don't really need it. What it also does is it brings up a couple of menus, so hopefully it's not too bright in the cameras, but on the screen here you can see it's brought up a camera, so we get a forward view, and you can also click here and you can see more if you like. You can see the rear, you can see a 360, which is really cool, or you could see the tow hitch. And then there's also this little off-roading button, and if we click that, it brings up this mode here where we can see that the rear diff lock is locked. And by the way, if you want to unlock or lock it, you just press that button here. You've also got your hill descent button there. And then in the digital instrument cluster, you can see that we have another off-roading menu, which kind of just mimics what you can see there, but it's a bit more succinct, so I kind of like it. Okay, so as we move off, here are some of the changes under the skin. So it is using the same platform as an underpinning as the previous Raptor. However, now you get a longer wheelbase by 50 millimeters. You also get a wider track by 50 millimeters, so 25 mil on each side. The front wheels are pushed closer to the front of the bonnet, which helps with the approach angle, and the approach angle is pretty good. It's not class leading at 30 degrees. The departure angle is actually very good at 25.6 degrees, so I like that a lot. And of course, if you're going to be doing proper serious off-roading, you're probably going to put a lift kit on it anyway and increase that regardless. In the Ranger, of course, being a work ute underpinning, you do get leaf spring suspension in the back, which for comfort isn't the best, as we're about to find out, but it's pretty damn good back here. And of course in the Raptor, it's going to be that really extreme off-road setup. So here we're driving on sand. In fact, let's put this car into its sand mode. Ooh, look at that. All that happens when you change between the modes is that it just adjusts the traction control. It also adjusts the logic of the transmission and the engine, although I can't really notice too much of a difference between mud and ruts, though I'm sure there is. I'll be honest with you, I thought the 10 speed would be pretty awful for off-road. It would just constantly be searching for gears, things like that. but the torque converter, the new torque converter within it, has made such a world of difference. It feels so much more refined. You almost don't notice it, which cannot be said of the old Ranger. Okay, so here we are about to go through some water. It's really impressive. This thing has a wading depth of 800 mils. So let's test out and see how that goes. It's always a bit disconcerting, a bit nervy. Oh, yeah, made it through with no issues. So here is a really interesting area. It's a really bad bit of track, and it's going to be a great way to test out how the suspension handles some really big undulations here that kind of change a lot. So far, we're going pretty damn well. This is a very muddy area here too. Kind of just bouncing around. Oh, and here are some really good tests for it. We're just slipping around. But you know what? Even on these all-terrain straight from the factory, it did it. I think the moral of the story here is that, yeah, the Ranger is incredibly, incredibly capable. Better than ever. The V6 makes it even better, especially with that permanent four-wheel drive system. You almost don't have to touch anything. It just works it all out itself. Super duper impressed as we go through a lot more water here. Okay, so just got given the safety chat. You kind of got to do that these days, but it's actually going to be pretty intense, so I'm quite excited. It's really going to test everything, including the 4-cylinder and its pulling power up a hill. So far, we're fine, but boy, is it muddy as all heck today. Really, really muddy, and this is relatively steep. Quite a big incline here, and this is the really intense part. We got to keep momentum here or we will get stuck. Oh, yeah, I love it. This thing is just climbing and climbing and climbing. How good's that? So I want to stop here for a second just to kind of test out the rigidity of the car. No flex. Wheel off the ground, and we're okay. I'm impressed. Okay, so that is the all-new Ford Ranger. This thing is, yeah, absolutely going to destroy the competition. There is no doubt in my mind. It has everything that pretty much every car doesn't. There's always been some sort of compromise. This feels like it doesn't have any compromises, which is really, really good. Elephant in the room here is reliability, but who knows until you've done 1,000,000 kilometers anyway, so we'll find out. But for now, as it is, absolutely recommend it. This thing blows everything else out of the water. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section just below that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. I would love to have you around. We do these launches, but we also do normal car reviews too. So I'll see you next week.